Hello and welcome to Pohai 101. This is introduction. I'm your instructor, Nate Greeley. Good to meet you virtually. So this is my face. I hope at some point to interact with all of you via Zoom so I can put a face to the name as well. I'm going to try to make plenty of opportunities to do that, even though this is an asynchronous course. So first, a little bit about me. So my name is Nate Greeley. You can just call me Nate. No honorifics are needed. No doctor, professor, anything like that. So I'll be teaching this course. I got my PhD from UCSD, UC San Diego, my master's from Cal State LA, and I have my BA at USC. And my area of specialization is primarily in the history of philosophy and the history of psychology. This is a much more general course about world history, but I will try to bring in some areas for my specialization, particularly philosophy over the course. I was just hired last week, so I'm brand new to Woodbury. I'm excited for this course, and feel free to let me know if there's certain things that you do in the Woodbury way, and I'm if I make a mistake, let me know. I'm open to suggestion. So this is an introductory survey of all of world history, right? Now, of course, that's a huge topic, and there's no way that anyone could cover even a small part of that in one course. Lots of different ways you could zoom in because you'd have to. We could talk about leaders of large states in world history. We could talk about, right, common sort of everyday people and their lives. We could talk about the lives of women. We could talk about the lives of merchants. Um, this course is entitled States, Economies, and Cities. And the idea is we're going to focus primarily on the major political entities over the last 2,000 years that produce the world that we live in now. So the political situation of the last 100, 200 years or so is actually fairly different from how it had been for the previous 2,000 years or so. In those days, the political scene was dominated by these large empires, the Roman Empire, right? Empires in China and in the Americas, and so on. So, by understanding how these empires came to be, how they operated on a daily level at in various ways at various levels, we'll see they're very complex entities, and how they eventually declined, right? Um, it will help us to understand where we are now and why we are here now. So the term for the sorts of political entities that dominate these days are called nation states. So it's imagined to be a different sort of entity than an empire. So largely the theme of this course is empires, nation states. What's the difference? What's the relation, right, over the course of history? So I'm not going to launch into all of that material in this lecture. The point of this lecture, and hopefully it will be relatively short, is I'm just going to go over the syllabus, explain how the course is going to operate, right? This is what the first day of class is uh, in any course. If you have any questions after watching it, right, I've tried to cover everything that you might want to know, but if there's something I didn't cover, feel free to reach out to me, nathaniel.greeley@woodbury.edu. I can always arrange to have a Zoom meeting if that's necessary, or I'll respond to emails. So just because this course is asynchronous, don't feel that you are not allowed to contact me. You might need to contact me a lot more, actually, right, in order to stay on track. All right, so the syllabus is available on Moodle, so you should have found that. I just updated it right now a little bit. Um, for example, my email just got started, just finally started working, right? So um, the title of the course, States, Economies, and Cities. That's my information, my email. The lectures will be asynchronous. They'll be posted to Moodle, but I'll post them by the time that the course sort of would have been if it were in person. So every Monday morning by 10:15 a.m. and every Wednesday morning by 10:15 a.m. there should be a link to a video in Moodle of a lecture. Uh, I'll try to actually even get them a little earlier, so there's no harm in that. And if you need to plan ahead, you can do that. I do want to do an office hour, so I haven't put one on there yet because I'm interested in the possibility. It's a relatively small class, unless a lot of people sign up in the first week. And so we might be able to organize it so that we could arrange to all meet at the same time, or at least I could have an office hours where I know everybody is available at that time and drop in. It could be an informal sort of discussion section. So sometime in the first week, I'm going to send out a survey just to see if that's possible, if there's any time where sort of everyone's schedules are free, and it won't be required, but you could come and pop in. It could be a sort of discussion. So let's look at the course description. So this course is designed to introduce students to some of the major ideas and themes in the study of politics and history. Again, it's an introductory course, no prerequisites at all, no background in history is assumed or required. So we're going to cover some of the key developments in human civilization from the birth of city-states in the ancient Middle East and the Mediterranean through the rise and fall of the Roman, Chinese, and Ottoman empires and the spread of Christianity and Islam, then the European conquest of the Americas, and up to the revolutions of the 18th century and birth of the world we live in, today's urban capitalist modernity. So again, a lot to cover, right? You can't drill into any depth in the lectures, but what I hope to do in the assignment, you're going to have a single term paper where you get to pick any topic you'd like. I'll offer some sample topics if you have trouble coming up with one. But if there's anything from this wide, right, swath of history that interests you, you can drill down into it into a term paper, right? So at least you'll get some depth on something. So the goals of this course are to provide students with an awareness of the major events, social processes, and historical figures that have shaped human civilization, to develop a knowledge of key terms, theories, and concepts that inform how we understand these histories, cultures, and political behaviors, and to familiarize you with world geography, the rise and fall of empires, right, and the history of different regions of the world. So again, very broad, but it's a good start, right? And then if you find something interesting, you can get in to more detail with it. So learning outcomes at the end of the course, you should be able to analyze political situations clearly and convincingly, uh, using one or more different political ideologies that we'll present during the course and some of the theories of politics and economics in discussions and in essay form. You'll demonstrate some awareness of the various cultural, historical, and political traditions in the modern world, right? So you'll learn something about, right, different traditions and different political uh, and economic ways of life, right, in other areas of the world throughout history. Again, discussions and essays. This is largely going to be written. We'll go over the assessments later. You're going to be writing in this course. Discuss intelligently the philosophical and historical origins of Western political and legal traditions. Again, the point of focusing on these empires is that it helps to explain the current political situation. And so you should be able to bring your knowledge of history to bear on current politics. And you should develop a fluency in the vocabulary that's relevant to the study of history. So you'll be learning some new terms, right, and some new theories, and some familiarity with the world and with geography. Okay, so the lectures are going to be asynchronous. I said I'll post them to Moodle. You can watch them whenever you like, right? You can watch them at 3 a.m. if you want. Fine with me, right? I will make sure that they are posted again every Monday and Wednesday morning, if not before. And then I'm early in the class in the first week, as I said, I'm going to take a survey since it's still a relatively small class, figure out everyone's schedules, and then I'll make my office hours a time that everyone can access. And then you can pop in anytime you want. And if lots of people pop in, it'll be a sort of discussion section, right? If you can't or you don't want to, it's not required. All right, so the assessments, right? What are you going to be graded on? My approach in my courses, and particularly in an online asynchronous course, is lots of relatively small, low stakes uh, grades, ways to pick up points just by staying engaged. My worst fear is that because, there's no class to show up to, people will sort of slip, get behind, right? And then all of a sudden find they're overwhelmed. So there's going to be regular assignments every week, and they're going to be easy points to do them and stay engaged. So there's going to be a discussion board, right, that you'll post to. There'll be regular quizzes about every 2 weeks, and there's going to be before you turn in your final term paper, you'll turn in a draft of your paper, and that draft will be graded primarily on completion and effort, right? It doesn't have to be good yet. Your first draft is not supposed to be good. It's guaranteed to be bad, but you'll get full points on a bad draft, right? As long as it shows that you're trying, right? You're on track. So if you do all that, which shouldn't be hard at all, if you're actually doing the readings and watching the lectures, that's 55% of your grade. Most of your grade is easy points if you just show up and do this stuff. Now, sometimes that alone is a struggle, right? But I like to reward people for that. And if you've done that, then the parts that are graded on sort of quality should be easier, right? If you have done all the reading, right, and watched all the lectures, then when you do your midterm, right, you will do well on it. So there's also a midterm, a final exam, and the final version of your essay. Those will be graded on quality. So to get an A on that, you have to do well, right? You have to demonstrate understanding the material for the midterm and the final. And for the essay, there does have to be some original critical insight, right? Some people find that a little scary. How can I say something original, right? How can I be original? We'll talk about it. I'll give you some ways to approach that over the course of the semester. Um, so here are the percentages now of each of these assessments. So online discussion board. So I'll create a discussion board in Moodle. I haven't created it yet. By Friday of every week, right? Friday, 11:59 p.m. You should have posted two things, right? So one original discussion piece and then one reply to another student piece. So the original or submission can be the objection to some claim or some argument, right? So you may think of history as sort of like a list of facts that are indisputable, but no, history is a living, right, discipline that's full of debate and controversy. Um, our primary textbook has a certain approach to history, right? They make certain arguments, right, for why we should understand it in one way and not another way. And you are absolutely free to disagree with the text or any of the other texts we're reading, right? And say, actually, um, I think that's wrong. And here's an argument why it's wrong. Here's another way to understand this. Um, so that's one way to be original in the discussion, right? Is to dispute something that you've heard in the readings of the lecture. You may also ask a question for clarification, right? So if something is said and you don't quite understand, right? Um, you know, if you explain in detail, it can't just be, I didn't understand the reading, right? In one sentence, that's not a discussion post. But if you say, the author explains, right, that the Roman administration was, right, operated in A, B, and C, but I don't understand how A is compatible with C, right? That sort of uh, questions for clarification would be a good discussion. So I don't want you to summarize what you've read or what you've seen in the lectures. The goal is original thought. And the idea is that in doing these discussion posts, we'll be preparing to write your essay, right? We'll be coming up with little ideas here and there that might be developed into a more complete essay. So that's the first post. You have to do one of those every week. And they're not going to be long, right? Um, and but you do need to, again, they're not just summary of the material, right? You have to be thinking originally. So, as you're doing the reading, if something pops up, that doesn't make sense to me, or that sounds wrong, right? Make a little note of it, and that can be your discussion post, right? You develop it into a few sentences. It shouldn't be a big deal, right? But it's practicing. That's original thought involves like not just letting the material wash over you, but engaging with it critically, right? And thinking, does that really make sense? Is that really true, right? Um, then you'll want to reply to another student's submission, right? Now, here's the trick, right? And hopefully somebody, a few of you will post your first, right, your A submission, before 11:58 p.m. on Friday so that people have time to then respond to you, right? But yeah, if something pops up and, if you can post it by Wednesday or Thursday, then there'll be lots of discussion posts that people can then respond to. So the response obviously should be respectful, right? You shouldn't say, "Oh, this is stupid" or whatever, right? And it should be constructive. Um, but it can be objection. So you don't have to agree with other people's posts. You could say, "I think you are wrong on this," right? And that's easy to say that respectfully. And in fact, that demonstrates respect more so than just agreeing with someone, right? And this sometimes is uh, new information to people, but to not really read or pay attention to someone's post and then simply say, "Hey, good job, that's great." That actually kind of shows disrespect. You have not actually engaged in what they're saying, right? I would like to see you demonstrate that you've read it, thought about it, and then have some further questions. Maybe you want to extend what they're saying, maybe you think what they're saying is wrong, or maybe only one part needs to be wrong. But what I would like to see is some engagement with the other person, right? So you can't do that by simply saying, "Hey, great post." So discussion, 20% of your grade, right? Every week, two posts. Um, you can certainly post more if you like. That'd be great. Um, Then every 2 weeks, roughly, there will be a quiz, right? That just simply tests that, again, that you are engaged with the material, that you have been doing the reading, that you have been watching the lectures. The plan is they're designed to be super easy for students who have done that. They're also supposed to be designed to be hard to just Google the answers up, right? So the question won't be, whatever, when was right, Julius Caesar, when did Julius Caesar come to power, or something like that. It's not going to be like you Google up a year, right? Um, they're going to be more about sort of philosophical or theoretic issues, right? But again, as long as you're reading it, watching lectures, and getting the main point of what's going on in that section of the course, the questions are just going to be roughly, hey, what's the main point? Maybe multiple choice, something A, B, C, D. One of them is going to be obviously the main point. The other one should be obviously wrong if you've paid any attention. That's the goal. Designing those sorts of quizzes are a little can be tricky, right? Sometimes the questions end up harder than I intend them. If that ends up being the case, and something's ambiguous or something, always feel free to reach out to me, and I'll give points back if I realize I made a mistake. Anyways, that's the goal. Should be quick and easy if you're staying on track with the material. Okay, and those will total 20% of your grade. So already we're at 40% of your grade if you're just engaged. Um, Midterm. So the midterm is going to be two essays, relatively short, each essay 1 to 2 pages. I'll give you 4 prompts to choose from, and you can pick any two that you think you'll do the best on and write on those two. They're not going to be from weeks 1 to 2 of the course. That's a mistake. That's a summer course I taught. It'll be more like week 4. We'll go over the syllabus, right? So the midterm will be from all the material leading up to the midterm, right? Um, so your essays, they just need to demonstrate understanding of the claims and the arguments from the readings and the lectures. The midterm doesn't require original thought, right? But it does require an ability to write, an ability to demonstrate that you understand the material. Um, the prompts will be very specific, right, about what you need to do. So pay attention to the prompts, do exactly what it says. Um, it's my experience as the way I design these prompts. Um, if you try to use like Chat GPT or something, it's going to give you a bad essay that will get a bad grade, right? ChatGPT is not very good at answering at the level of specificity that I'm going to be asking for in these prompts, right? So I don't recommend you try it. My experience is those sorts of essays are really easy to pick out, and they just address, right, the actual question, and they get bad grades. Okay, then you will have an essay draft. Uh, so the point is, right, writing is revising, right? So writing a paper the night before is not really writing. Uh, so I want to avoid that by making you write a draft. Uh, Getting your ideas on the page, not worrying too much about whether your argument actually works real well, right? Getting it down so that you can then revise. Revising is writing, right? Now you have the material on the page. It's much easier once it's already on the page. And you're going through saying, okay, this could be clearer. This argument is not working. I need to try a different approach. I'll give you detailed feedback on your draft that you should then use to revise for the final. The draft, again, will not be graded on how great it is. It will be graded on, did you actually attempt to write a full essay? So the draft is not an outline, right? It's not half an essay. It's a full essay. It's an attempt at a full essay. It just doesn't have to be a great essay. Okay, and then you'll revise your draft and you will turn in your final version of your essay. and then you'll have a final exam, and the final exam is going to be just like the midterm, except a little longer, right? Instead of 2 essays, it's going to be 3 essays. You can choose it from 6, and each one's still 1 to 2 pages. Right? So total 3 to 6 pages for the final exam. I haven't been able to find the final exam schedule for Woodbury yet, so I will let you know before that time what it is and when it'll be due. It'll be submitted through Moodle. So those are the assessments and how much they're worth for the course. Here's the course schedule. When you look at the syllabus, it seems very long and seems intimidating. That's only because I'm trying to be very specific and make it very clear what's going on every single day, what's due. And as I said, there's little assignments. There's something due every week, 1 or 2 things. So it looks like a long list, but it's really not intimidating. It's just trying to help you be very clear. So 828, that's today, right? This is the lecture, just the course introduction. There's no reading for that. Then for each date that there's a lecture, right, I also give you the relevant reading. So um, I recommend doing the reading first and then watching the lecture, but I'm open to the possibility that there's different approaches that work better for you. If it's easier for you to watch the lecture and then do the reading, again, this course is asynchronous, so maybe that works for you, whatever works for you. And then I have it every time a discussion post is due, which is every Friday, 11:59 p.m. It's listed on the course schedule, right? We'll cover um, the overall, right? The introduction is just an overall description of the approach, right? Of our main text. There's several different texts, right? Um, then we'll start with the ancient Mediterranean, right? Ancient Greece and the birth of the city-state. Then we'll move on to some readings, or sorry, to some empires, right? The Roman Empire and empires in Japan, or sorry, in China. Uh, so that's sort of like roughly the ancient world, right? Is those, and then we'll watch a film that's set in the ancient world. We'll have some discussion on that as well. Then we'll move on to the Mongol Empire, and there will be notice here on the 9th of October when your draft is coming up. Um, I'm going to give you a lecture on how to write a term paper, right? So the lecture will be, here's what I expect from a good paper, here's what it'll look like, and it's not, I don't give you all these specifics to say that you have to like adhere to a certain structure or else it's bad. Um, there's lots of ways to write a really good essay, but I'm giving you sort of a formula so that if you have no idea, you can stick to that formula and be safe. But if this is old hat to you and you are super interested in history and have written a lot of essays and want a different approach, that's fine too. So my assignments are very detailed, but the point is not to be right to. Uh, it's not like you have to write that way. It's just like it's supposed to be helpful as a guide to one way to write. All right, and whenever there's a holiday, it's listed here on the course schedule as well. We're going to get into the empires in the Americas, right, previous to European colonization. Um, we'll watch a film, Apocalypto, and there's a fair amount of controversy about how that represents, right, the history of those empires, and so we'll read some relatively short op-eds from like the New Yorker and New York Times and so on uh, about that, right? And you can it's an interesting debate, right? In films, like is it accurately representing history? What is it to accurately represent history? Um, then we'll get into the Spanish conquests of those empires. Then we'll get into the Ottoman Empire, which is now, right, we're zooming across back to the Near East, where once the Romans dominated, and now, and then there is, uh, right, the later Roman Empire, and then there is the Ottoman Empire, all in that same area. And then we will get into Europe, right? The rise of Europe and European expansion, European colonization, the birth of capitalism, and then sort of the end of this age of empires and entering into our current age. And we'll talk about some theories about the modern world from Smith and from Marx. And then there are the final things that are due. So that was, I'm not, you can read over that in detail, right? The course schedule, the brief overview of what you're dealing with. You don't have to stay, I don't want to make this a super long lecture. It doesn't need questions, but the syllabus, I hope, is fairly detailed. All right, and then at the bottom of the syllabus, I have a diversity statement here. So um, I want everyone to feel, right, included in this course. I want everyone to feel comfortable in this course. That is my goal. So please let me know if there's any subject matter that you find distressing or difficult, right? I'm happy to find alternate assignments for people. Anything is going on, right? If you think that my approach is in any way uh, hindering these goals of diversity, equity, inclusion, please let me know, right? Yeah, I make mistakes too, so I'm open to that, and I just want everyone to feel they're equal in this class and they can speak out and anything I can do to if you have any sort of accommodation from the Office of Student Disabilities, there is sort of I'm again happy to help anyone, and I'm usually very flexible with this sort of thing. It's an asynchronous course, so usually that's helpful, right? You kind of have as much time as you need for these sorts of assignments, but if there's any accommodations that you need that would be relevant to an asynchronous course, I'm happy to do it. There is a procedure for that, right? So you have to go first through the Office for Students with Disabilities, right? And they will send me an email so that it's all legal and everything. And once that process is done, so if you feel like that might be something that applies to you and you haven't gone through that process, try to get it started soon because there is a little bit of a lag with the bureaucracy before I get the letter that says I'm free to accommodate you. And then religious accommodations. So if there's anything that comes up, religious holidays or anything, again, asynchronous. So hopefully it should be pretty flexible. But if anything comes up, happy to work with you. And finally, academic integrity. So if plagiarism, this is I guess a little bit of a concern in an asynchronous course, right? So there's no in-class essays, so you will have free use of the internet and all sorts of resources when you're doing your assignments. Um, the two concerns are, plagiarism, just sort of copying and pasting stuff for the internet. That's super easy to figure out with Turnitin and the other sort of software we have now. So if you just copy and paste from the internet, you will be caught. New thing, right, these days is AI, right? So some people have tried to have, right, ChatGPT or other AIs sort of generate their essays or discussion posts for them. Um, Typically, I'm new to Woodbury, so I don't know what their policy is, but the policies at the other places I've taught are that, um, these online detectors are not like surefire, right? So I feel like I have a pretty good sense of when something has been AI generated, but I can't necessarily convict you on the basis of that gut feeling, right? Um, but my experience is they don't produce good essays, and they're getting worse. Uh, so I don't recommend it, right? If you try it, I think you're entirely the most likely outcome is it produces an essay that's very obviously AI to me and is also very obviously doesn't answer the questions. I do design my questions to be very specific, not just to catch people with AI, but because that's the best way to write an essay is like I don't like these lazy prompts that say, discuss right the history of the Roman Empire, right? I've always given very specific prompts, and AI is very bad at answering those. So that's enough on that. So again, looking forward to this course, and please reach out to me via email, and I'm always happy to do a live Zoom conversation with you. And I'll send out a survey early on to see if we can have a standing sort of, open, non-required sort of discussion. All right, so I will see you soon.